Hey book friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my next Friday reads. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but I really enjoy making them for you. And today's video is a little extra special because I have a haul, a small book haul to show you that I got from Mother's Day. And so I want to share that with you at the end. So let's just hop in. Let's hop into my Friday reads video. Hey everybody, welcome for those of you who are new here and welcome back for those of you who have been coming for a while. My Friday reads videos are typically pretty casual. I tend to just want to talk about the books that I've finished up, the books I'm currently reading, as well as kind of what's on the horizon. So let's start with a few books that I have finished up since my last video, which should have been my April wrap-up video. So check that out if you want to see what I read last month. But I was able to finish a couple other books. One is a holdover from my gosh, I think I started this in March, but I got it from the library, so I had to wait till it came back in, and that is A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus, I think is how you say her name. I'll scoot over. This is such a cute middle grade book. Okay, maybe cute is the wrong word for those of you who have read it. It's actually a World War II historical fiction book, but it is middle grade. I feel like this book really handled the war aspect of the book, but also the children aspect of the book really well. So it is about these three kids, William, Edmund, and Anna. And at the start of the book, their grandmother dies who was taking care of them. So they are like officially orphaned. But this was like right before all the children were sent to the countryside. So their solicitor, lawyer person kind of hatched this little sketchy plan that was like, well, how about we send you with the rest of the children and hope you find a forever family, which is pretty terrible to do to these foster families out there. But that was his plan, and that was what the kids were looking for, is they were looking for someone to love them really. And the book goes from there. I won't spoil the ending for you, but what I loved about this book is just how authentic I felt the children were. I felt like they truly were their ages. So the oldest was like 12 years old, and then I think 10 and 8 or something like that. But the 12-year-old was acting kind of like a parent, so he was taking on those like first child responsibilities, but to a much greater degree than most 12-year-olds have to do. And the middle child was the one that was like pushing against each other and rebelling and just hating the fact that he had to live the way he was living. And that just came out in some behavior issues. And then there was the youngest girl, and it just was really sweet. I loved their interactions with each other. I loved how they interacted with others, whether those people liked them or disliked them. I felt like some of those interactions were very realistic. And I feel like maybe the only part that brought it down from a 5-star for me was this one section of one family they were staying with that was really poor, and the mom was just angry and just really defeated was the best way to look at her. That was her and her kids. It was just sad. It was terrible what these kids were put through, these three main characters, but it was also terrible in my head that this woman and her children were living in this way when her husband was off to war sort of idea, and that they were just living in such terrible conditions. But what I didn't like is that that woman was kind of villainized in a way where she was looked down upon by the kids, which kind of makes sense because she was treating them terribly, but by the adults too, which I wasn't as like impressed with, where I was like, wow, where is the compassion for this woman? But then it was like, man, everybody was having a hard time because it was a war. So anyway, that was probably the part that brought it down for me, but the rest of it was just really good. My kids actually listened to this before I did on audiobook, and they both really loved it. It was probably pushing their age range a little on what they could understand content-wise in the way of just like how hard this would have been. But anyway, I loved it. 4 stars. I highly recommend it as a high-class, middle grade World War II historical fiction book. So I read that one, or finished that one finally. And then I also read this book. So I just finished this book a couple days ago. I was reading this as part of Jacqueline's Patreon channel. It was a buddy read. It's called The Perfect Wife by J.P. Delaney. And it's about this woman who wakes up from an accident of some sort, but it's been 5 years. She wakes up and she's married to this like tech company genius who is in the business of artificial intelligence. So she kind of wakes up into her life and she has to learn all these things about her marriage and about her husband and about her son. And it goes from there, and it definitely has domestic thriller sort of vibes, but it also has some science fiction flair to it. That's what it's about. As for did I like it? Not really. I mean, I was intrigued and I wanted to know what happened, and I wanted to kind of solve the big mystery, which it's not talked about at the beginning, so I won't say what it is exactly. And I wanted to know that, so it kept me reading. and it kept me intrigued enough to get to the end. But the end wasn't altogether that satisfying. I don't know, it was a little bit strange and it was a little bit of a letdown. But I think what really dropped this for me, or what made this book like not amazing to read, was just the way the author kept coming back to this idea that robots or artificial intelligence would just be around for like sexual pleasure. And I'm okay if they like mention that every once in a while, but it was like a focus of it. It's like, my gosh, get your head out of the gutter is how it kind of felt. Like, I'm like, this story could have been so much better, but those underlying tones just felt overdone for me. I was just like, get off it already. Let's just talk about AI. I find that part to be interesting. I don't need to think that our society is only going to develop that for like sex toys or whatever. So I was just annoyed with that, and I probably kind of ruined the book for me, in all honesty. So 3 stars, maybe 2.5. I can't quite tell. I wasn't that impressed. So I finished that book, and I'm glad I got it from the library because I'm taking it back. So on to what I'm currently reading. So I picked up a number of books since then. I'm reading 3 books. This one I'm listening to on audiobook, and I'm loving it. I wish I had it in physical form because I think I tend to read better with my eyes than my ears, like I've said before. But it is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. So this is the second book in the Farseer trilogy. It's following Fitz, who is the bastard son of the king in waiting. And during the whole first book, he was living at the palace and learning how to be who he was, which was like not royalty, but not nobody. So he definitely had a hard life, and he was being raised by the stable masters. So there is a sweet like found family element there, but yet he gained the attention of the king, and he was starting to be trained up in being an assassin. And then events went from there near the end of the last book. It is very much a continuation of where we left off, which I'm loving. I'm loving getting back into the world and the characters, and Fitz as he's older, but very affected by the things that happened in the first book. And so I'm just enjoying it. I think I'm like 4 chapters in. I'm not very far, but I'm really enjoying being back in that world, and I want to see what this next book is even going to be about. There is still like this threat by these red ships on the kingdom, so that's still there. So there's things still going on. So I'm loving it. It's very fun. I do intend to pick up the books from Book Depository. I just haven't done it yet. Actually, what was holding me off from officially doing that is I wanted to pick up the first book in the Second Era Mistborn series, basically because I ordered this as well as Assassin's Apprentice from Book Depository. So I want to see if I like this series enough to buy the second and third. Then I'll just buy the books to finish both of those series. Anyway, so let me tell you about this because I started this book and I'm like 70 pages into this. So this one is definitely a continuation of the world that was built in the first Mistborn trilogy, but it's very different. It's very different in the sense that it's like 300 years later. The people of the first trilogy are like legend now. Like they have towns named after them. The magic system of the first trilogy is still in here, and that's allomancy, but it's different. Like it's not as common. It is mixed a little bit with one of the other types of magic that was present in the first trilogy as well. And it makes it for just an interesting spin-off of the first world. But it's very different in the sense that it almost has like a Western feel to it. So there's like guns and bullets and things like that, as where the first trilogy, which gave me more like medieval vibes, that's not what this feels like at all. So this is very interesting. But I'm enjoying it because it's bringing back all of those memories of like, I'm like, who was that? Where was that? What was this person in the first one? And so it makes it really fun because I'm like, oh, right, I remember that. And so then the events that are starting to take place here are very interesting. So it definitely has its own plot. So I'm not quite sure where this is going yet, but I'm enjoying it. I'm happy to have picked it up. And so I like this one. So I'm liking both of those books. I'm so happy I finally found a book I like because I was struggling a little lately with the books I've been selecting. So I'm liking both of those. And then I'm actually reading one more book right now. I tend to do 2 physical books and an audiobook at a time. So I'm also reading A Lawn Petal of the Sea by Isabel Allen, I think is how you say her name. I am really liking this book. I'm not too far. 20 pages. Okay, I'm hardly far at all. It is a historical fiction book. This one is focused on the Spanish Civil War. And it's focused on this doctor as well as a woman who is pregnant but loses her husband. And those two team up. I'm not sure if it's happy or not. And they escape together. They like go over the mountains and get on a boat to, I believe, Chile or Argentina and start a life together, though I'm not sure what that life looks like. And I believe they're always like wanting to get back home, wanting to get back to Spain. So far, it's really good. And I have not read any of her books, but what I'm liking is I am liking her writing style. I feel like she's doing an excellent job of like drawing me in and like painting the picture of like setting up the characters, of making me invested in them and finding them like unique and intriguing characters, while still like painting the picture of like the war and how it is affecting people. So I think it's just beautifully written so far. And I can't speak to like plot or anything like that, but I'm really enjoying the writing style. So another good one. So all three of the books I am currently reading, I am really liking. So I'm super happy about that. So honestly, so that's good. So those are the books I'm currently reading. I feel like I'm not very far in all three of those. And so I'm not even sure if I'm going to talk too much about what I want to pick up next, other than the fact that I do want to participate in Becca's Bookopoly. She's doing a 48-hour readathon coming up in a couple weekends. So I think the weekend of the 20th, which will be about a week from when this is posting. And so I do have my first book I want to read for her reading challenge, because she rolled the dice for that. And I was talking about this in my TBR video. But I think I'm going to pick up this book because I've been itching to pick up more Agatha Christie, and this fulfills the first prompt. And so I want to pick up The Murder at the Vicarage. So this will probably be the next book I pick up, because I don't think I'm going to finish the other three books between now and then. Hopefully I can finish like one of them, and then I can fit this book in as well. And Agatha Christie reads really pretty quickly for me, and I enjoy her plots. I just enjoy her stories. And this one is the first Miss Marple story about a man who was disliked in the town, and then the vicar, the head guy at the church, said some bad stuff about him, and then he ends up being dead. And now they all need to figure out who did it. Was it the vicar? Probably not, but we'll have to see. And so I'm looking forward to picking this one up, and then if I read it fairly quickly, I may be able to participate more in her readathon. We'll see. I'm not very good at readathons, in all honesty, but I like the idea of them. So odds are that will be what I pick up next. Okay, so that is my Friday reads. But like I said, I picked up a few books for Mother's Day. My husband was kind enough to set up a pedicure appointment for me, as well as a gift card to Barnes & Noble. And so I picked up 2 books, and I wandered around forever trying to figure out what I was going to buy. Oh, it was just so much fun. And so I came back with 2 books, and I came back with a historical fiction book as well as a science fiction. So I'll just start with this one, because this is the second book in the Red Rising series. I read Red Rising last month in April. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the character of Darrow. Again, go see my wrap up for my thoughts on that book. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it like 4.5 stars. I'm excited to hop in. It kind of left it at a bit of a cliffhanger, so I'm just like, what is going to happen now? What's the plan? Because a lot got accomplished in that first book, but it felt a little bit more like a setup book. And now I feel like these next 2 books, to my understanding, will kind of be more plot heavy books. And so I'm really looking forward to this book, and it's called Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. And so Red Rising, the first book in the series, is about a man named Darrow who is part of the Red class, and he is part of the colony on Mars, and the colony is set up in a hierarchy of color system, red being the bottom, gold being the top. And then due to some things that happen to him really early in the book, he gets very angry and he decides to get back at the golds, and he does that by impersonating and becoming a gold, and he's going to work from the inside out to like take down the golds basically. So he definitely started that in the first book, and I'm hoping he gets more into that during this book. So I picked this one up because I really want to continue that series sooner rather than later. So I picked that one up, and then I picked this book up. So I've been wanting to read this book for a while. It was part of like a most anticipated books from like last year, but I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and it finally came out on paperback. I waited that long. And it's called The Women of Chateau, Lafayette by Stephanie Dre. So this book is about different women at different time points in history at the same place, at Chateau Lafayette, which is a fortress, a haven in France. And the first woman we follow is in 1774. So we're talking French Revolution, guillotine, stuff like that. So she is in charge of the house. And really what drew me to this book is it's the women of the chateau, as opposed to men. Like usually men are the head of the household, right? And they're just running the castles and everything, but it's not the case here. It's women. So that first one, 1774, and then 1914. So I guess we're talking World War I. and then 1940, World War II. So it's women from different time points and how they keep it together, how they run everything and protect the people on their estate. So it just sounds really good and very historical. I just like that it hits so many different time frames. And I thought the cover was really well done. I actually like it better than the hardcover. So I picked this one up for myself. And so those two books I picked up for Mother's Day, but I also have one more book that I just recently hauled that I just thought I'd share with you because I'm really excited about it. So it's called Shiver by Ali Reynolds. This book is like an isolated mystery type book. I can't even remember what it's about, but I remember getting this recommendation from Audrey over at Chapters in Converse. So this is a thriller that follows 5 former snowboarding champions that are all stuck at this deserted ski resort, and they all have secrets. I mean, it sounds a lot like One by One by Ruth Ware, or even And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which you all know I love. And so I am always on the search for more isolated mysteries where you know that the person who did it is present. It's in the house, but who is it? I love that premise. So that was my little mini haul I wanted to share with you guys, as well as what I'm currently reading. So I hope you guys are having a wonderful Friday. And let me know down below if you guys have read any of these books, or if you want to read any of these books. What do you think of them? Share it all with me. But that's what I have. So give the video a thumbs up if you like Friday Reads videos. Subscribe to the channel if you want to, and I will see you in the next book video. All right, guys, take care.